Reason for why I'm standing, it's not because I am superior to them, but because I have to hit now the next slides. We just have this one, so don't worry too much about the slides. But the idea is that we connect each other. So you will have the QR codes there for our LinkedIn profiles to send us whatever you think about this presentation and panel. If you want these slides, don't, because it's just this one. But we can talk about other things. And now I will get sitting, and we can start the conversation.
You feel free to blame us on LinkedIn.
No, don't worry. I will not, at least for now. So the idea is to start talking about Backstage, CI/CD, GitOps, and ArgoCD. And this is for me and Gerardo, because together at the beginning of this year, we started to set up some workshops for the KCDs we were participating. And we used GNU, or IDP Builder, as a command line. So we decided to showcase how you can easily build a system with an internal developer portal based on Backstage. We are both certified on Backstage, so we are also talking about something that was practically hardening our nights and giving us something to study. But we enjoyed that part because it was really fast. So Gerardo, you remember, we started with that in Texas.
Yeah, we started talking about IDP. IDP Builder is an interesting platform, is an interesting framework where you can set up IDP in a couple of minutes. So for example, you can use, it doesn't matter what Kubernetes version you want to use, you can deploy this IDP in Kind, Minikube, or if you want to go different cloud providers, you can do it. It's so easy. It's a couple CLI. It's interesting because at the end, whatever or whoever can install an IDP with the following tools. For example, Backstage, like the Bond, for example, like the base, you can install ArgoCD, all about GitOps, Kicklock for authentication, and if you want to, if you want to go beyond and like the adventure, you can install Harbor and different frameworks. So it's interesting because all these technologies, if you install separate, it's a match. So, but this tool, again, IDP Builder, you can go to internet, IDP Builder for GNU. It is the project, I think so, the name of the company or the project that maintains this. You can install this. And so it's always interesting to see the face of the developer when you install that. Because regularly, the developer feel, not only developer, whoever feel intimidated with Kubernetes. And it's normal. Not all the people need to understand Kubernetes.
There's another point. Backstage, you can run it without Kubernetes. But there is a big advantage. We will talk later when we think about some kind of strategies to use the technology of developer portals where you can benefit from the scheduling abilities of Kubernetes, the observability, and many other things. What I remember, Gerardo, is that people were very excited to see that after a workshop of, let's say, 1 hour, not that much, they were able to see a Backstage interface with authentication. So inside Keycloak, you could have been set up your own users, and that is because of Kubernetes, and the ability of running an Nginx deployment, clicking on a button from the Backstage interface, and then having it on ArgoCD with GitOps. That is a big advantage for visibility. You can imagine that if you remember developers, when they were working with Jenkins UI, because we are all from that period.
A little bit. I look younger.
We don't have to do Jenkins UI, but why not? It's useful. The point is that they liked the ability to see everything on a UI. And ArgoCD, for that, is a little bit different from Flux, because we can see what we deploy. They are equivalent, but it's easy for people to learn about that. So after that, we decided to showcase that in a Git repo, that if you write us, you will be having the details for trying the workshop. My question when Cheryl joined us was, how can we benefit from developer portals in the environment that you are working with, so S39X, or generally hardware, where you don't think about the team itself, but about the process. Cheryl, would you give us an idea of how is the activity that your team is doing in the laboratory, or where you would like to have something to control the CI/CD?
Okay, well, one of the things that we like to do when we deploy an operator such as Service Mesh or KubeVirt onto the SV90X under OpenShift is that we have a principle of feature parity with the AMD 64 or even ARM 64 platforms. So because the CI/CD that exists downstream and upstream are, they tend to be, sort of handcrafted. So this can be, when you go to add additional resources, especially remote resources or with extraordinary security requirements, because they're located in a lab somewhere deep in the heart of a mountain in Denver. No, it's you tend to you have to add quite a few other things, and you're just like, it would be nice if it were more like Legos, where you could say, okay, now we need to add another one of these. One of the things you do have to manage is that you're getting your images and your test cases and your Kubernetes cluster set up, because we're deploying operators and testing them on whole clusters. It's a bit of a remote control exercise, and any help we can do to regularize that and to have some visibility over that beyond having like Jenkins over here and some Tecton over there and scripts over here and, GitLab over there and GitHub over there. It's be nice to have it more regularized and able to see it, what it looks like from end to end.
So we see the problem in your laboratory. All of these pieces working together.
It's common.
Yeah,
common
and the
problem.
Lego boxes you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Think about that for everyone here. If you have heard about cells, we will have later some kind of thing on that topic too. But in a laboratory where hardware is the commander, you still need something to coordinate. And this is not really present. So it's part of the future where we have to point to. We have to think about what to do for these guys that are working in an environment that is not cloud computing. It's similar because they do cloud storage and similar, but they work on virtualization, probably with KubeVirt and similar things. So there are a lot of implications to manage that process that is the team. From the team to Devtron, what do you think you would like to have in your idea of the work that you do there, and also the team that you manage or you work with, when you think about Kubernetes and all the things that you do in your real life?
Definitely. So the way I see of IDP, or let's say the developer portals, is something which is a enabler for you, right? In the morning, we were talking about this team management, right? Team metrics. In the morning, we were discussing about these things. So Devtron, just to give you a context, it's a Kubernetes-born platform for production IT teams, right? And I've seen its evolution from last 5 years, I guess. Though it has been evolved from a developer productivity platform to a production IT platform. But then why do we need an IDP again here, right? So the question here, if I have an opportunity to integrate that, maybe my idea of IDP would be the critical business metrics, right? For example, if you're doing multi-cluster deployment on 3 different environments, how does it affect my business? Or why do I care about 3 deployments, right? But if I know this much of the resources it is utilizing, which is incurring this much amount of cost, that would be my metric for that. And that is something which I can consolidate in an IDP, right? Same thing that we are talking about in the morning. Let's say if there are multiple teams working on multiple different fronts, right? You might have, let's say, hybrid environment. Some of the things are containerized. Some are deployed in the VM machines. Some are the cloud-managed solutions, right? But still, you would need something on the top of that, wherein you can see all these 3 different type of deployment, and how does it correlates to each other? How the teams are performing for each of the deployment systems? So I think that would be my kind of IDP environment, basically.
That's great, because we started from me and Gerardo doing the workshop, then Cheryl talking about the laboratory, he talking about this kind of Kubernetes adopted systems where he has some challenges. But now, Graziano, you have the part that is probably more related to what is really used a developer platform for when it's your business, but it's also part of the times that you answer the phone for a support call. So they will ask you, the platform is not working, the internal developer platform. It's becoming an external developer platform.
It doesn't happen too often.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I probably be a little bit biased because I'm working on the developer platform itself.
You have to be.
I'm not using the IDP, but I'm working on the IDP, and it is working, yeah.
Yeah, if you want, I can give you mine that has a mixer.
No, it's okay. And as I said previously, I'm also a tech lead for the tag developer experience. So my main focus is always developer experience for developers in many different contexts. And for me, IDP is just that. It's empowering the developer experience and empowering the team to work together. Tools alone works really well. ArgoCD alone works really well. Kubernetes works really well. Then you can add an orchestrator in the middle, like the IDP builder, which is a CLI. But when you add the portal, which is the UI, you are adding the UX to the whole process. Make it clear to the developer how they can use all this process, how they can discover which process actually is useful for their use cases, and help the developers to collaborate with other teams. You are using the IDP, the portal, and the platform to build golden path, reusable components. This to escape the ticket ops trap. I need a new repository. I should ask the ops team to create the repository. Now I can go directly into the platform and get the repository I need. That's not to make the teams work in silos. It's to make all the assets, the reusable assets into the company made available to everyone to collaborate more effectively. That's the point. It's all about developer experience for me.
Great. So we have 4 points. I am the moderator, but no one is moderating me, so I will not moderate myself and talk about an experience, because I think that I share more or less the same use case of Gerardo. What we were doing was experimenting. But we have effectively something that we should recall on an article that I read 5 days ago from Artem Laiko, that is a CNCF ambassador, and he was pointing to the fact that we should use internal developer portals recalling the domain-driven design. That is a pattern that everyone should be knowing. Probably not everyone is familiar, not being a developer, but it's generally something that is based on a contract. So for me, one thing in the future to have is a standard, like we have, in example, for the open container interface. We could have a standard for the portals in order to avoid too much commercial overhead from the companies that are doing the enterprise view of the IDPs, but to have something that initially is valid for everyone. And we don't have a standard like that defined because we have many. Like, in example, the article was based on OpenChoreo. You can take a look at that. It's an open source approach, but it is based on cell development. So you have separate cells like teams or ways of doing things. And to be connected each other, you will need something like a standard or the domain-driven design contract. So thinking about Cheryl, an example, you in your laboratory where really domain-driven design is not applying because you don't do contract for microservices when you develop on top of hardware. What do you think will be the next frontier for your developers to have everything bundled together in an homogeneous way that will give us the ability of saying we have a hardware standard for developer portals?
Well, the systems that we work with are primarily Kubernetes-based on the SV90X. So you have your hardware, then you have logical partitions, and you use those to define nodes within a Kubernetes or OpenShift cluster. And you can also have multi-arch clusters where either x86 is the control plane and SV90X are the worker nodes that you add afterwards, or vice versa. You can even have PPC64LE or RISC-V ARM. You can have clusters that have many, many architectures in them. So what we would be looking for is a uniform way of reporting test results. You know, there are many ways of many standards for reporting test results. And the nice thing about standards is that there are so many different ones to choose from. Yeah,
so a library of catalogs.
Yeah. So, and seeing the architecture to build applications, to have it so nicely segmented out, it looks as though you would just need to have a catalog of SV90X Kubernetes facilities images available to you in order to incorporate them into your development process. The nice thing about this is that many clients that we see, they'll have an x86 side of the house that doesn't necessarily work well or play well together with the S390X side of the house. We might have heard about this happening in the federal government recently, for example. So the nice thing, I think, about having these facilities which allow you to integrate UIs with the back end that is back-end hardware agnostic, and to test them effectively can actually bring people together.
Great. So we heard that hardware is still a subject also for developer portals, and we don't have a standard. We have to invent something. In PPC64, when we talk about these architectures, if you haven't worked with KubeVirt or virtualization systems, or you don't have to work like in this case with something that is a node of just AMD 64, but you expand your Kubernetes cluster to run mixed workloads and mixed architectures, then we need a standard for that too. Thank you, Cheryl, on that. It's really enlightening. And I think that, Gerardo, we were talking about AI. Now, it's trendy because everyone wants to talk about AI. Gerardo is also having a presentation today, tomorrow on ADK from Google. So we have a lot of things that we can include with AI. But what is your view on what we presented at that time? How would you enhance?
Yeah, probably the people when hear about Backstage think predefined templates, and that's it. You need to create a template, and the people or developer need to use the template that already exists into the service catalog. But why not? We can create AI agents into Backstage, because at the end, the service catalog could be the data or source of truth for the agents. So it is a good strategy that I am thinking right now, or suggesting to the Backstage or the community here, in order that to build this.
They are out.
Because, for example, imagine that we can have MCPs into, or for example, Backstage can offer MCP tools and different agents. It doesn't matter, the provider, Langshake, ADK, something like that, can connect with that and interact each other. So other strategy that I think is probably the analysis of predictions. For example, imagine that you can write to the Backstage in a simple prompt, I want to know what services right now is very close to the, or is consuming the 80% of the CPU. Backstage can, using the metadata, can return information, and developers can understand, oh, okay, this. Probably, I think so, the IDP needs to go more to be more, offer tools in order to make more connections and not only reader, because right now, the most of IDP is views. You have the views for this, for this, for this, but I think so we can interact more with the IDP or different providers and connect and create other things. And the last thing is about, for example, why not you can create new things. For example, you can write, I want to a microservice in Golang with these characteristics, and that's it, create this. But it is thanks to the source data that Backstage or whatever service catalog already has.
Great. So on service catalogs, Graziano, could you tell the people what they are? Is it something like a newspaper where we can look at information? What is it?
Yeah, something like that. First, I would like to add something about the standards. I love to have a standards for portals. That's something that we are observing for AI, for example, with the rise of A2A or MCP. They are standards to connect the models or the agents with anything else, any tools. And if you think about where we are working in, the open source community, it's an ecosystem of tools. We just need the standards, like interfaces, to link together the pieces and make it easy to switch from one tool for another, for example. Then, about the service catalog. The service catalog is just a bucket where you fill your resources, your components, let's say your company assets, software assets, whatever. And you can describe these assets. Again, we miss a standard to describe workloads, for example. And you can add metadata. Why we need metadata? To let non-deterministic models like AI to understand what they are looking for and how they can use the components they can find into this bucket. About AI, again, I see a lot of cool intersection between models and generative AI and portals. We are always looking to the developer experience, but we always forget that the portals are configured and managed by someone else, which are the platform engineers. And we don't care about the platform engineer experience. When you configure your portal, whatever, if you are, of course, into a brownfield situation where you have your services, your cloud resources, your repositories, or whatever, it takes time to configure all the resources. And if you are in a large-scale company with a lot of teams, it takes time to correlate together all the resources. This is where AI could help. You can use AI with some specialized agents that can scrape all the assets you have, put them into the bucket, and correlate them together to clusterizing them. That's the first. Talking then about developer experience. Portals are complex systems that evolve over time. And like every complex system that evolving over time, you are at entropy. There is you have a
Chaos.
Chaos, exactly. You have an open source community inside your company that can add components, that can change components. And you may, with time, have two components that can do basically the same thing, but in a different way. How a developer can choose between them. He or she must know how they are built. And AI could help like that. You can build your components in a more atomic way, and the AI can compose together all these components to build the so-called golden path. And we can move from serving into the portal, into the platform, self-service capabilities to something that is self-driving. The AI acts on your behalf to take everything you can need, because the AI know how the components are built, how they are used by someone else, and put together all of them to fit your needs. That's my
I have a question for Abhinav.
Basically, we need a plugin for cloud in Backstage to understand everything.
Yeah, that's true, correct. And another thing that I would like to ask you is about observability. We have been talking about all of these things together. In Kubernetes, we have a lot of power tools that we can use for observability. What do you think we have in our hands to start working for portals on that observability?
So one very interesting thing that I see, let's say for portals, right? We were talking about AI and all those things. What I think is that maybe it's the high time now that platforms should start invoking MCP agents, because for every tool that we have in the ecosystem, right, almost everything has their MCP servers. For example, ArgoCD does have their MCP server, right? But when you're not able to invoke those from the platforms, you are not actually dealing with those things. That's why I said maybe there is a time to need a plugin for Claude, because Claude is able to invoke the MCPs, right? When we talk about observability specifically for Kubernetes, right, the way I see Kubernetes, there's a time when, as of today as well, a lot of people, a lot of tool, a lot of philosophy is basically separate the application and the infrastructure in Kubernetes, right? Technically, it's same only, right? If we talk about the infrastructure module, let's say we talked about Istio service mesh, right? It's an infra component. Let's say Prometheus, Grafana, it's an infra component. End of the day, what is that? It's a pod only with some definitions, right? And when we are talking about the application infrastructure, your microservice, what exactly are you doing with that? Eventually, you are writing a deployment file for that service, ingress, and all those things. Eventually, you are running a pod for that as well. So that's the beauty of Kubernetes. Kubernetes is a singular platform. As per the Gartner report, it's going to be the next operating system, right? And in Kubernetes, the application and the infrastructure are not two different things. It's the same thing. Eventually, both are running on a pod itself with the same task definition. And when it comes to observability, one interesting thing that IDPs should be doing is the correlation between these things. That is something no one is doing right now, as per what I can see. We are doing, as a part of Devtron, we are doing certain things in that way. But if I talk about the IDP point of view or developer portals, no one is doing that as of now. If we are able to correlate those metrics, right? For example, my microservice, let's say microservice A, which is built on Golang, for example, it's running almost all the microservice. Maximum time, microservice has their interdependencies. There are some upstream dependencies, there are some downstream dependencies, right? But why we are not talking about the correlation between that? For example, if microservice C is failing, maybe it is because of A doing something else. And maybe the infra module, let's say service mesh, right, which is the infra component, maybe it is doing something on the network part. Maybe that can be the reason because of which A is failing and which leads to C, which is failing. So that kind of correlation is something that I think would be really interesting, because Grafana, Prometheus, there are a lot of paid solutions, New Relic, all those things, right? They are very good at showing you graphs and metrics, but these kind of correlations, I think very few are doing, or maybe no one is doing. I have not come yet, which is actually treating Kubernetes, which is actually treating the application and infra same in the Kubernetes space. No one is talking about that, I think. That is something which would be interesting from my side.
Great point. So it will be incredible to see that you have to open your microphone, Cheryl. Okay.
Those correlations can be very important in detecting security issues as well. Extremely important.
Security,
guardrails, troubleshooting, specifically if something fails down, troubleshooting would be really easier if we are able to correlate all those metrics.
So I heard the word security. We should do another panel for that. But I also heard the word entropy and chaos testing. How many of us are really thinking that in portals we don't have chaos testing at the moment? We don't have a standard for that. And how much chaos is there in the laboratory in S39X when you try to use portals? This is a brief question. Do you think there is chaos testing option so you can do a test of what is really something that you can do a sabotage to? Or you do that probably, but how can you track that?
We do it and we track it with text logs.
Can you imagine text logs? It's something that we use. I know we are not.
Like finding it in his.
So tracing everything. Gerardo, in our use case, I think that we have to confess that we started to use Backstage. Probably it was more than 2 years ago. But then the problem was the adoption. So that's another problem. Everyone is thinking to, oh, I want a portal to do this, but when it's time to adopt it, no one is able to do that. So another thing is documentation and use case. This is for every one of you. I think that we are running right near the ending. We have 3 minutes. So if there is some of you that wants to raise the hand and say something about what we talked, he or she, they are very welcome. If not, we are going to close here doing the point and the recap of what we were talking about for every one of you to start contribute to the idea that we need a standard, not just on the commercial side. Also people from a laboratory or from real hardware work or at the edge, because today we have a lot of Kubernetes at the edge, they need to integrate their activities with something that is organized in a portal. And from the AI perspective, we think about the agents. If you don't know that much, just imagine that you can put an agent to know a small batch of something that can be done inside the portal. And if you read that article about cell development, you will see the analogies with the agents and the technology that we can apply with MCPs. And in a laboratory where Kubernetes is the top, just not for the enterprise solution, but also for knowledge, for understanding the scheduling and the advantages, we had another witness that was part of the normal activities, this ability to track and observe and to do chaos testing. I think we are done. I don't know, let's add something, you all, because I am moderating, but again, moderate me and say cheers to the audience. Every one of you, starting from Cheryl.
Cheers. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue. That's great. Backstage has a green logo, so go Big Green also. Yeah. Blue-green deployments. Another thing to add to the portals. You know, there is always a nice discussion that we can do all together. So I ask you, everyone, to extend the topic just talking to us. I saw that the QR codes were not visible earlier, but now they are perfect. So you are very welcome. And there is just one last thing that you could do. Here there is a QR code, another one. It is not really expressing something visual, but it's pointing to the SCED survey that you can take and leave us some feedback if you liked or not.
Or not like.
Yeah, disliking is also a portal option. You can do that.
Yeah, the don't like is disabled. By
yeah.
the way.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys. It has been fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Fabrizio.